Imagine walking into a clinician's office. Your thoughts are tangled. Your emotions are unbearable. You're desperate for some relief, for some help. Instead, after just a brief conversation, it's usually about 50 minutes, you're handed a diagnosis. It's a single label pulled from a checklist in a manual. In that moment, your suffering is reduced to a category or code. And that label will follow you. It will determine what treatments you receive, how others see you, and even what opportunities in life might be denied to you. But there's one thing they won't tell you. That label isn't as scientific or permanent as it seems. It could change in the next edition of the manual, or it could disappear entirely. Now, for centuries, we know psychiatry has tried to define mental illness, but these definitions are not neutral. They have been shaped by things like culture or politics, profit, and worse yet, prejudice, right? Like in the past, women who defied societal norms, they were diagnosed with hysteria and they were locked away. Gosh, homosexuality just not too long ago was classified as a disorder. These labels weren't about science. They were about control. And before you dismiss this as just history, consider what's happening today. Did you know, for example, that schizophrenia is 3 or 4 times more likely to be diagnosed in the Black and Latino population than it is for white patients? Did you know that ADHD diagnoses in children, that's skyrocketed? So with the ADHD, are we recognizing a real disorder here, or are we medicalizing normal childhood behavior just to make the classroom easier to manage? Oh my gosh, look at grief. Now, this is a deeply personal experience. It was once considered sacred. Now, if it lasts too long, it's classified as a disorder. Now, who decides what too long is? The experts who write the DSM, the pharmaceutical industry that profits from new diagnoses? Psychiatry, has the power to help. But don't forget, it also has the power to harm. Psychiatry has the power to heal, but based on past history, it also has the power to oppress. So today, as we begin to study Chapter 7 on psychopathology and diagnoses, as we look at how to define and diagnose mental illness, I want you to ask yourself, are we truly understanding human suffering, or are we just forcing people into categories that serve a system more than they serve a person? Always, always, always question. Research, verify. It's going to take some much needed changes in our broken mental health system. To me, it sometimes feels like we haven't even learned anything from medieval times. Okay, I'm going to jump off my soapbox here, okay? We're going to dive now into what truly defines clinical psychology. That's assessment. This is an important unit. It's about the different types of assessment we use. It's about how assessment shapes the way we diagnose, how we treat, and hopefully how we help those who are struggling. Assessment is what really sets us apart from other mental health professionals. And as clinical psychologists, we are uniquely trained to do that. We're uniquely trained to evaluate and understand the more severe and complex forms of mental illness. But remember, assessment isn't just about administering tests. It's about uncovering the patterns, the struggles, and the needs that might otherwise go unnoticed. Chapter 7 gives us an introduction to what these assessments lead us to. Before we can effectively use assessment tools, though, we need to understand what we're looking for. So, what do these assessment tools really reveal? How do they guide us towards a diagnosis? And perhaps most importantly, how do we ensure that our assessments lead to accurate and meaningful and ethical conclusions? The only resource, remember, that we really have today to be able to do that is the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. And this chapter, chapter 7, gives us a good overview of that and leads us into assessment of psychopathology. So let's begin.